so there was a huge cohort actually of Black filmmakers, and we made sure that we reached so that they were aware of the fund. So these are one of the things, and actually Neil Pepper, the director of International, is quite active in developing the relationships and making sure that we promote it well.
So just out of curiosity, did you have a presence at Cannes this year?
Yes.
You did? Right.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we're always open to doing more, I think I would say.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, that's nice.
Oh, that was it. Okay.
So this is the international co-production strand of the UK GSF. It's very vague on the dates, but we now fix the dates. So the first, it will open again on the 7th of February, and it will be open for 8 weeks, and then there will be an assessment period for 10 weeks. So 7th of February 2023, just in time for the Berlinale, so that we can make sure that we promote the strand there. And so actually, can we go to the one before? So no, I just want to say quickly, so what we fund. So we fund minority co-productions in, as I said, fiction, animation, and documentaries. So Minority UK means that the financial share of the UK will need to be 49% maximum, or ideally underneath, and minimum 10% and 20%, 10 or 20%. Depending if it's bilateral or multilateral. So it cannot be more than, it cannot be 50%, it cannot be 51%, it needs to be a minority co-production. We also fund minority and majority TV, UK co-productions, but only in animation film. So going to this slide, the objectives, as Chris also said before, are tied to the general UK Global Screen Fund, to the bigger things. So on international co-production, we want to make sure that one of the objectives is, for example, international partnerships. So co-production is a definition of international partnerships. So the UK is collaborating with other countries. And then obviously international audiences. So the way that we assess, for example, is not so much editorial, but we look at how UK content and UK collaborative content reaches audiences worldwide. We also want to make sure that the UK producers work with new markets, or so explore new markets and new collaborations with new markets, but also with existing markets, but also reciprocity. So if there has been some collaborations before, so that there is a continuation and reciprocity. We obviously want to increase the number of UK international co-productions. We funded around 25 in 2 years. So we funded 11. Actually, can we go on the previous slide? The one with the list?
The one before.
Before. Previously. Yes. Okay, so this is just an overview of what we funded in our pilot year. It's a shame that we don't have a new slide where there's also a project we funded in our this year. So we awarded 1.7 million our pilot year, and we funded 11 projects, of which 8 are feature film and 3 are TV projects, 2 are animation and 2 documentary. There is a really collaboration with 13 different territories, including Israel, Germany, South Africa, Belgium, China, Greece, is really Argentina, Denmark, is really broad. And you can see some pictures here. There's 2 animation. The top is TV animation. It's called the Coop Troop, which is from the 16th South, which is a Northern Ireland-based company. And then we have Merkel, a documentary about Angela Merkel, who played at IDFA and Telluride. And then we have the Gastigo, we just played, it was a Halloween special, we just played at Sky. So it's really, and Stolen, the UK South African film that we just mentioned from Chantal Rochester. And or we have The Settlers, which is a UK, France, Chile, Argentina, Denmark, Sweden, Germany co-production. So it's really, we try to be as global as possible, and we don't have like target territories.
I guess with The Settlers, there's no limit in terms of how many countries.
No, you can co-produce as, and it's a pity we don't have the new projects, but we just awarded 2.2 million to this round, and we supported 14 projects with 18 different territories. There's also Saudi Arabia, for example, or Georgia, so we're very global. I think I already. So what kind of project we are looking for is really the international potential. So we are, as I mentioned, we wouldn't assess so much editorially, but we look at how is the project, for example, helping the UK producer to increase their international relationships. How is the project traveling globally, worldwide? Is it capturing audiences worldwide? How much is the finance strong enough? Is the partnership funding strong enough? Yeah, and is there reciprocity? Is there any new markets or existing markets? So the key points, so we offer, very important, our awards are grants. So we don't take a recoupment position. For co-production, we offer up to 300,000. We haven't given the full amount because our fund was really highly oversubscribed. The maximum was 250,000 this year. We are open to both unofficial and official co-production. So official co-production means that they are made via the 12th bilateral treaty that the UK has or the European Convention. But also unofficial, which is the case, for example, with the settlers that we just mentioned, where there is no treaty in place, or we funded a project this year with Saudi Arabia, where there isn't a treaty between the UK and Saudi Arabia, but we are open to those type of co-productions where there isn't. Nigeria also would be an example that there is no treaty, but we are open for this type of co-productions. In terms of directors, we don't need the directors to have a feature film. We require the UK producer to have at least one lead credit that has been released internationally or in the UK, but the director doesn't need to have this credit. We will look at the track record of the directors in terms of shorts. We need the project to start production within, actually it's 8 months, so we just update that. It's 8 months after the closing of the deadline. So if our deadline is 2 months after the 7th of February, which is I think mid-April, the project will need to shoot within 8 months of that deadline.
Shoot as in not finished, but just be in production.
They will need to start shoot. They cannot have started production when they apply.
Sure.
Except animations and documentaries, which is a bit different. But for fiction films, they will need to start shooting like when the deadline is. Yeah.
Sure.
To be honest, if you are realistically, they cannot because they need to close production, so they will start shoot a bit later. So we can only fund the UK elements. By UK elements, we mean, for example, a makeup artist, UK makeup artist, but we don't require it to be tied within the UK, so you can shoot everywhere. So for example, you can have a UK makeup artist working in the US, and we will fund that, or a DOP or an actor, so it's all the British elements. We have 2 application deadlines. One, as I mentioned, is in February. The other one is in late August. We haven't fixed the date yet. So we will have, starting from this year, 2 applications per year. The cash flow, just for you to know, is 30% on closing and then 50% when commercial funding are in, if you're awarded. And next slide. So eligibility. So there are some barriers of entry. We are quite risk-averse funds. We tend to come in when 60% of the funding is already in place, excluding the UK tax relief. We cannot fund more than 50% of the UK financial share on the UK side. We require some additional third-party financing on the UK financial share. So this type of money doesn't have to come from the UK, but it can be, for example, an MG from a French sales agent or private money from the US or from China. It doesn't matter. But the UK producer will need to attract some money on the UK financial share. As I mentioned, the UK producer will need to have some production credits on their track record. And there's a minimum contribution of 10 to 20%. And then for TV productions, you will need to have at least 2 broadcasters if it is a minority co-production and 3 broadcasters if it is a majority. So the assessment is basically the same as it is in business development. But it is scored a little bit differently, and obviously when at international growth we will look at for example, is there a sales agent attached, is there a distributor attached, so how is the project helping the UK producer to grow to the next stage internationally. Finance plan, the more finance, the higher it will score. Funding outcomes, any co-production skills, any revenues or any new international partnerships. Track record is self-explanatory. and additionality, how is the fund helping this project? How is the fund helping the project, and what would happen if you didn't have the funding? And then UK-wide benefit, as I mentioned, as Chris mentioned, is where is the company base, where is the project shooting, and any other UK-wide benefit. And part of the assessment is also BFI diversity standards and environmental sustainability. So we have a BFI diversity standard manager who will look at all the applications and look at on-screen representations, creative leadership of the team, access and opportunity, and audience development. And also we require the film to follow the BAFTA Albert certification or an equivalent approach as in other countries. Yeah, and then that's it. And yeah, we are happy to take any questions if there are any.
Okay. Guys, what do you think?
Awesome, very interesting.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. I'm still like processing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, there's so much information, I know.
No, it's wonderful. I took lots
Yeah.
of pictures to make sure that afterwards I can like check. So you guys, the funding is mostly for like UK companies or co-productions with other countries. Like for example, I'm Peruvian, so like for example, if I bring like either private funds or talent from Peru and also like British talent for people here, then would that be considered like a, depending on how much funding it is, it would be either considered like a minority or like a
Yeah,
minority fund?
exactly. So we would fund the majority Peruvian co-pro. So you will need to find a UK producer who will be in a minority, and then you can work together and attach UK talent and Peruvian talent, and we would fund the UK talent basically.
Are you guys only doing for companies, right? It's not like for independent like filmmakers and things like that. So like for example, only like a UK or non-UK company for like the major funds, or like, sorry, I got a little bit confused in that part. Is it like the funding goes to only companies, or can it be like a freelancer?
What
You mean for
status of
business?
company?
Oh,
What's the minimum?
for co-production, the UK producer will have a UK company, yes, at company registered a company house with the same criteria. Actually, it cannot be funded or cannot be owned by a large company, etc. What Chris mentioned previously, but they will need to have a track record, like at least one credit that has been released in the UK or internationally. But you will need to have this lead credit. As long as you have this lead credit and the company registered in the UK, then you are eligible to apply.
Yeah, and like we need a company attached to you, but you can create a company with like 50 quid and 30 minutes online in the UK, which is going to be relatively easy. It's easier than a lot of other countries to start a company in the UK. That's not even going into like the special purpose vehicle
Sure.
way of managing film financing and so on. And essentially we need a company because that shows us that you're a respectable company. But you also need a company to be able to attach a bank account for us to transfer the money into.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is this information shared with Film London and other festivals? Because they're the ones that come in contact, I would assume, Emmanuel, for people that are in desperate need of these fundings, right?
Yeah.
So does BFI share this with Film London, that who work with many different festivals?
Yeah, so we work a lot with the British Film Commission as well, and Film London too, so they would be aware, yes.
And it's shared amongst festivals?
Which festivals?
All festivals there's so many festivals in the UK, so
Yeah.
many. Are the festivals aware of this fund that they can support?
Yeah, so definitely we do. For example, Chris was just in Birmingham. We were in Glasgow. Our team was in Edinburgh in the summer. So yeah, we do a UK wide outreach definitely.
We're also always open for invitations. If anybody wants to invite us to like come speak, we're always open for.
Yes,
something.
if you think of any audiences, I mean, we haven't reached you, so we're really keen to reach.
And obviously, we're filming this, so we're going to put it out on our
Yeah.
social
Yeah,
channels
and
as
make
well.
sure you contact us if you have any questions after.
I guess from my input, because I did a documentary which went out on Saturday, and I'm looking to make another documentary. So in terms of starting from, because you mentioned, with the exception of documentaries, because as you know, documentaries, it never ends in terms of how you gather footage, research, etc. So how would that be recognized in an application that you've actually done work already and spent money, etc.?
So for documentaries, we require a completion date. So the documentary will need to be completed within 18 weeks, 18 months of the closing of the deadline.
Right.
But for example, when you make the application, there's a question if you have already started production, and that's only applicable to animation and documentary projects.
Right.
So we will look at your completion date. It's not if you complete in 10 years, that wouldn't be fine for us.
Sure. Okay. No problem. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I just had a question. So it's like, so international, so it's co-production. So the purpose of the funding is to like collaborate with other countries, but obviously, I mean, it's from UK, so UK needs to be involved. So it'd be like because I from the States, but I went to school in South Africa, and I know like a couple of producers and stuff that are like trying to kind of figure that out, and they have some roots here. So I want to know, like, if it was like a South African story, I guess I have two questions. So is it, so you can pitch for individual, like, this is our documentary idea, right? It's not that because you have to register, you have to be a registered company to shoot or do anything because of tax purposes and all that stuff, right? But can you pitch individual ideas, like individual like features or a documentary idea, or does it have to be like a couple year plan of a couple different projects?
I mean, we would only look at the application. We wouldn't like listen. Well, maybe if you can tell us about the story, but we would only assess it once you apply. I'm not sure if I understood the question.
Yeah. Okay. I think the question is kind of like do you pitch like the applications? Are they pitching ideas? Like, are they pitching like a feature idea or a documentary idea and like how to monetize it, basically, or is it for companies?
If it's co-pro, it's like a film or a TV project that they would apply with. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
And
yeah.
just the co-production aspect of it. So like, are you looking for like producers that are maybe outside of the country to collab with producers that are in this country?
Yeah, exactly. So really for co-production, we want to increase international partnerships, international relations, international creative collaborations. So for example, we funded 2 projects with the US in this round, 1 documentary and actually 2 documentaries. Yeah, exactly. We want to encourage that collaboration with, for example, US talent or US filmmakers, because obviously when you co-produce, you do creatively and you create a collaboration that is creative because you will talk about the projects and how to make the project and which talent to attach, but also it's like a business relationship because you both hopefully get some revenues and increase your businesses and visibility. So that's what we want. So it's not the UK alone, but it's the UK in collaboration with another partner that will come together, put their forces together, their contacts, their networks, their talent relationship and everything. They come together, collaborate, and make a film or documentary.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we always try to do is to make sure that these people meet each other. So for example, at the moment there's Content London going on, which is focused on TV, and we're running a breakfast, for example, for which we invited some of our like British producers that we knew and who applied to get accreditation for it, as well as our contacts from Canada, our contacts from Australia, our contacts from like Spain and so on and so forth. And I think that's not the only co-production like meeting
we
event
do
that we put together.
exactly. We do them throughout the year. Of course, it makes more sense to do them at international festivals or like international events like Content London. So we do something at Berlinale or at Cannes, so we try really to put together UK producers with international producers to meet.
And in terms of return on investment from the BFI point of view, what is it specifically that the BFI are looking for in return? Obviously, once the projects are completed, what kind of involvement do the BFI have in terms of exposure, promotion, distribution?
So in terms of recoupment, so this fund doesn't get any money, but obviously we want to support the growth of UK companies to the next level and for them to, so that's why for co-production, but then you can respond for business development. So obviously it's what the gains and also what the government, like the objective is for UK content to be seen internationally, to reach international audiences, to increase the work that the UK has with other international companies. So that is the gain. It's not gaining anything in terms of economics, but it's all about really helping UK producers to grow to the next stage.
So, yeah, sorry, before you get in, so is that something that the government would kind of shout about? Is that something that deliberately they will let communities, audiences, the general public know that these are our success stories, for example? These are.
I don't know if I can respond for the government, but I think they supported and financed this fund for this objective that I just mentioned, to
Yeah.
increase international audiences, international relationships, and revenues of UK companies.
And I mean, this feels like a good segue to talk about the Screen UK as well, which is a website where we platform UK screen, TV, animation, and games. And we're like monthly, we're looking at what releases have there been of UK content globally, and then there we have like special events that we do with interviews, for example, around the BAFTAs, around the Academy Awards, and so on. And that's one, like again, another one of the outcomes of the UK Global Screen Fund is the Screen UK website, where you can have a look on that and see exactly how we try to make sure that we have as many perspectives as possible, as much content as possible as well. As Attica was mentioning, we're currently working on a data hub as well that should hopefully, and this is kind of like where my area of business comes in, where we're looking to give businesses in the UK a competitive advantage when you're looking, for example, at what we're trying to do. One of the bits that the data hub is going to show you, or at least that we're trying to negotiate at the moment, don't quote me on this, is to see the viewership numbers on platforms like Netflix, for example, for UK productions, which as far as we know is not something you can easily get access to, and definitely not for free. So hopefully that's going to give UK producers a competitive advantage in the international market. When you're looking at the International Business Development Fund, the type of things that we're asking for from the companies that we fund, because again, we look a lot more to fund companies as opposed to slates of projects. We're looking to get financials for the next 3 years. So what was your turnover? What were your costs of sale? What were your overheads? Were you able to, and then a narrative around, were you able to achieve your purposes? Were you able to achieve the KPIs that we work together to set based on your application? And of course, and this is going to stand across all of the UK Global Screen Fund, we are looking for positive news, companies that we have funded throughout any of our strands that end up making the news, that end up getting awards, that end up getting selected at festivals and so on, because then that allows us to be able to say, look, this strategy works and we are able to make things happen.
So I think, I don't know if you mentioned it during the talk or beforehand, but so this, the funding is ring fenced until 2025?
Yeah, exactly. So we have been extended for 3 years from 2021. Yeah.
Sure. And so I guess what I was going to ask was, for those that are successful in terms of success stories through the back of the fund, are they invited to reapply again, or is there like a churn where new people come in, or do you go back to your tried and tested?
So there's a cap. Can you explain that really well, the cap? So so you can reapply, yes, but there is a limit on the amount that you can receive over 3 years.
Right.
So if you have applied for business development, then you get 100, I don't know. And then for co-production, you get 200. There is a maximum of 600,000 that you can get in 3 years.
Right.
So to make space to other companies.
Okay. So that's the exact figure, 600.
625,000, yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Does anyone else got anything they'd like to say?
It's just a comment, but just thank you so much for this, and it's really, really awesome that you're doing this. When I think about like a lot of my favorite movies and filmmakers, it's all collaboration. I mean, some of the best movies are people from Canada or England or all all over Europe. So it's like a really exciting thing, and I'm going to try and share this as much as I can to the producers that I know, because it's so important to collaborate and to just get bigger and better. And yeah, so just thank you for this and taking the time to come out here and talk.
Just out of curiosity, what's the climate like in the United States with regards to public funding?
Oh, it's really not good at all. It's really bad. I mean, people stay in film school for forever so they can keep, even Martin Scorsese, like he went to film school and he stayed there and he used the cameras. It's really like almost stifling. Like, I'm looking at it. I think that like a lot of really great, like world-renowned filmmakers got started because like their governments cared and had the things in place to like fund them. I guess America has so many other issues that they're focusing on dealing with where it's like there's not as much money like for the arts, right? So it's definitely like I mean, I went to film school in South Africa. You know, if I didn't move to South Africa, I probably wouldn't have went to a film school of the caliber like I went to and been able to figure it out. I was all very fortunate, but yeah, it's like it's definitely really tough. But it also makes for really good filmmakers. Like it takes a lot to get your movie out and to do it. Yeah, the biggest thing I'm taking from this talk and this trip is that like all the great filmmakers I know in America, they should definitely leave and experience film festivals in different parts of the world because like it's a global community, you know. So it's like to understand it, you know, it also lights a little fire in you to be like, oh, like, you know, I can do it. I might have to get uncomfortable for a little bit, but like I can do it.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think especially certain types of stories you need to collaborate with. You cannot tell a story about, I don't know, an Arabic country only from one European perspective. You need to collaborate with your Arabic producer also to have a actual perspective. Yeah, so I think I love co-production, so I agree with you. It is about collaborating and creating a true story.
And how did you hear about the festival?
Buff?
Yes.
I think Film Freeway. I really researched and then I looked into certain festivals and then I did my own research and just looked at past projects and stuff like that and then saw some through lines with the projects that I'd like seen that were here too. So I was like, oh, this is great. But it was like a lot of research. Me and because I'm not a producer, I'm a cinematographer. Me and the director, we decided to like we should try and push this out. The film that came here. So we like spent a lot of time researching different festivals and yeah.
And now that you're here and you've seen other films, do you feel like when you submitted it that it was a perfect fit?
It was so perfect. I mean, this is like a really formidable trip for me. Like it's really changed. I've been thinking about like, you know, masters and maybe moving to a bigger city because right now I'm back in New Jersey and like I was telling Teresa, like I was thinking about like New York and like LA, maybe AFI, trying to talk to different filmmakers from all of these colleges and cities and like coming out here, I almost like 100% am probably just gonna move here and work here and figure things out here for a bit. Also just like the quality of work, I mean, the people, the fashion and stuff like that, it's like I feel really comfortable here. And things like this, you know, are very like, oh wow, like there's a community of filmmakers and the international community is so important for me, I guess, like my whole life. You know, without an international things, I wouldn't be the person that I am. So I really attracted to it. I actually got coffee with the South African filmmaker that moved here like 2 years ago this morning. He's a DP here. So that really helped for do it a little confidence to come and like, you know, hop over because he's, you know, figuring it out and he was doing this thing in South Africa. But he's here now and yeah, he's really enjoying it. It's just,
I guess it's a good thing that the world's getting smaller.
yeah,
The world's getting smaller.
yeah.
And what about you? Any comments, experiences, anecdotes?
I'm really interested on this talk. I started producing a little while ago, but my main focus is like I work in our department, but also in our department, like you have to do a lot of producing. I do production design as well. And I started directing and writing like a little while ago. So I had to learn producing because to push your projects forward, you need to do a lot of the producing yourself. And it's interesting to see how different parts of the world do different types of funding because in Peru, like the funding is like very minimal. And I found that the States was better. For him it might be bad, but like in Peru, like the funding that we get is like almost non-existent. You get it, but it's like so hard and it's like it doesn't really push you towards collaborations with other countries. And I find that a lot of the narratives that they push is like as I was telling Alfie, is like more really about the suffering of like minorities communities inside Peru. And I don't like that much because I feel like they do it because they know it's gonna do well in festivals. And I also was living in the States before. I lived in New York and I lived in France as well because I'm half French. So I know a lot of people who will be very interested on this talk, and I'm also gonna send them the information over because you have like a couple of companies, and I feel like collaborations are like so important because you get like interesting narratives that you wouldn't get. Like narratives are like a different quality and like a different caliber when they're like a collaboration, because these stories are so much more interesting, in my personal opinion, because they're like more globally, and the themes are more globally, so more people can experience and understand different perspectives and different backgrounds, and I find that lovely. So thank you for being fun.
Sure. I guess there's always this myth with public funding that you have to keep the funders happy. Do you ever get people feel paranoid because you're giving them money that they have to please you? Do you ever get that kind of?
To please the funders?
Yes, to kind of drive a certain narrative.
What like the people actually, the actual,
Well, most creators are crazy and they're rebellious. So
Yeah.
it's like they don't want to be bound by certain things. Do you ever get those conversations with filmmakers where they have to say to you, if you give us the money, then we'll tell it like this? You don't get those kinds of conversations. That's good.
No,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, especially we don't assess creatively, so,
Right.
Oh, really?
yeah, no.
Yeah.
So how much is it, I'm sorry. How much is it, in the, like the pictures? Is it creative stuff? Do you want to see lookbooks and mood
We
boards?
do want to read the scripts and so, but the way that we trust the producers to have done, also we for co-production, so we require 60% of the funds to be in place, which means that there already has been some sort of
Mm.
creative assessment previously.
Okay.
So yeah, we would read at the script, and so like an acquisitions person would read at the script, more like looking at the audience. But yeah, we look more at the objectives are a bit more international than creative, and we would trust the producers and to have made a judgment call on the quality of the project.
Okay, so essentially they're not making the decision based on creative.
Not our
judgment.
fund.
Right.
So not this fund. I think the film fund, the bigger, there's a bigger BFI film fund, which funds films from the whole UK. That's more an editorial assessment.
Chris, are you gonna something?
I would just wanted to say again, yeah, we are not editorial. The criteria that you've seen on the screen, that's what we assess for. And yeah, at the end of the day, we trust that you know how to run your company. We have a look at things like your financials, we have a look at things like your credit scores and so on. Like we do our due diligence,
Right.
but at no point is the due diligence based on, oh yeah, you know, you're rebellious.
Muriel, you got anything you want to say? You sure?
No, I'm alright.
One question, I saw that you guys also like fund first-time directors as well that are inside like companies. What is the criteria for like if they haven't done a feature, like what is like the track record would look like for like short films? Would it be like several festivals? What kind of festivals in those companies?
So for CoPro, we mainly look at the producer's credits, so what type of credits they have. And in terms of the director, yeah, I think it would, if the director has had a short in Cannes or Berlin or like even Estetica or whatever, so it would be better if there's some track record in the director, but it's not the main, or TV, some TV track records. Yeah, so that's part of the track record assessment bit. But we don't require the director to have had a feature film already.
But for example, if the producer had worked in the in the BBC and had a feature that they just finished and they're like in post-production, but they still haven't done like major projects, would that still be considered?
Well, the project will need to have a distribution in the UK or international to be eligible. So if you had the distribution, yes, otherwise not in the next year.
Alright, thank you so much.
Okay, guys. Well, thanks for coming, and thanks to you guys for being part of the British Urban Film Festival today. Hashtag BUFF 2022. Our website is britishurbanfilmfestival.co.uk. Like I said earlier, we'll put out highlights from today's talk via our social channels. So do look out for that so that you can continue to spread the word and take as much out of it as you guys are free to do. So Attica, thank you. Chris, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And whatever you're doing, enjoy the rest of your
Get
day.
in touch if you
And get
want.
into it. All right, thanks guys.
Thank you.